In section 7.1, we are going to create confidence intervals for proportions. A drug is used to help prevent blood clots in certain patients. In clinical trials, among 4,366 patients treated with the drug, 144 developed the adverse reaction of nausea. Construct a 95% confidence interval for the proportion of adverse reactions. Part A, find the best point estimate of the population proportion P. So how did I get that point estimate? Well, what I did was I took the number of people with the adverse reaction, 144, and I divided by the sample size. So I took 144 and I divided by 4366, and there's my estimate, 0.033 when I round off. So about 3.3% of the people in this sample had the adverse reaction of nausea. Now, part B on these problems is always going to ask you to find the margin of error. And the way that we're doing it is we're actually going to calculate the confidence interval first, and then from the confidence interval find the margin of error by taking the upper bound minus the lower bound and dividing by 2. Now in the MyStatLab problem, you're not going to see part C until you've answered part B. So what you're going to do is write down the confidence interval first from StatCrunch, and then we'll do the calculation, and then in part C we'll actually enter the confidence interval in the homework window. So I'm going to go ahead and from my left toolbar in MyStatLab, I'm going to go ahead and click on StatCrunch, and I'm going to go to the website, and I'm going to open up StatCrunch. And I'm going to go to Stat, Proportion Stats, One Sample with Summary. And if you remember, you have to put in the successes here. In our case, that was 144, and our sample size was 4366. And I want a 95% confidence interval, and I click on Compute. And so here's my confidence interval, and it goes from 0.0277 rounded off to 0.0383. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type that down here. Not sure why my oh, I know, it's on center, so I couldn't figure out why it was in the middle of the screen. There we go. And then it went up to 0.0383. So there's the confidence interval that I'm actually going to enter in the answer for part C. But for part B, what I want to do now is take the upper bound, 0.0383, subtract the lower bound, 0.0277, and divide by 2. And if I take my calculator, so 0.0383, subtract 0.0277, and divide by 2. And so I get a margin of error of 0.0053. And if you notice, if you take the point estimate and you subtract the margin of error, you'll get the lower bound of the confidence interval, and if you take the point estimate and add the margin of error, you'll get the upper bound of the confidence interval. So when you're working the problems in MyStatLab, you'll have to follow these steps in order to be able to use StatCrunch. And actually, in StatCrunch, if you want to just go ahead and enter the data in at the beginning of the problem, you'll notice here's your point estimate right here. Your sample proportion is the point estimate. So you can actually have StatCrunch do all the work for you on the problem. It'll give you the point estimate, the confidence interval. The only thing that you'll have to calculate by hand is the margin of error, which again is the upper bound of the confidence interval minus the lower bound divided by 2.